I remember only about 3 shelves of bottles. They took all the stuff out of the cellar as well. You'd better show me. Mr. Teller led the way to a door at the side of the back shop. The lock was splintered. Hamish took out a handkerchief and put it over the light switch at the top of the stairs and pressed. He stood on the top step and looked down. The cellar was certainly empty and dusty. He returned to the front to find that Jimmy Anderson had arrived. "Hello, Hamish," said the detective. "Crime, isn't it? A real crime. All that lovely booze. Taken a statement yet?" "Not yet. Could I be having a wee word with you outside?" "Sure, I could do with a dram. There's a pub across the road." "Not yet. Outside." Under the suspicious eyes of Mr. Teller, they walked out into the street. "What?" demanded Jimmy. "He is saying that thousands of pounds of booze have been nicked, but when I pointed out to him that he only kept about 3 shelves of the stuff, he said they had cleared out the cellar as well." "So?" "The cellar floor is dusty. Even dust. No marks of boxes, and, what's more to the point, no drag marks. It is my belief he had nothing in that cellar. He could have been after the insurance." "But the insurance will want to see the books, check the orders." "True. Well, we'd best take a statement and then talk to his supplier." They returned to the shop. Hamish took out a notebook. "Now, Mr. Teller, you found the shop had been burgled when you opened up. That would be at 9 o'clock?" 8:30. "You didn't touch anything?" "I went down to the cellar and found everything gone from there." "We'll check around and see if anyone heard or saw anything. What is the name of your supplier?" "Frogs of Strathbane." "Why?" "The insurance company will want to see your books to check the amount of the lost stores against your record of deliveries." "They're welcome to look at them any time." "Have you seen anyone suspicious about the town?" "Now there's a thing. There were 2 rough-looking men came into the shop 2 days ago. I hadn't seen them before. They asked for cigarettes, and I served them, but they were looking all around the place." "Descriptions?" "One was a big ape of a man. He had black hair, foreign-looking, big nose and thick lips. He was wearing a checked shirt and jeans." "Did he sound foreign?" "I can't remember." 2 men in white overalls came into the shop carrying cases of equipment. "We'll stop for a moment while you take the forensic boys through the back to check the break-in," said Hamish. "What do you think?" Hamish asked Jimmy when the shopkeeper had gone through to the back shop with the forensic team. "Seems a respectable body. Still, we'll check with Frogs. If he'd had the stuff delivered, then he must be telling the truth." "I don't like the look of that cellar floor." "Well, if there's anything fishy, the forensic boys will find it." They waited until Mr. Teller came back. "Now," said Hamish, "what did the other fella look like?" "He was small, ferrety, I remember," said Mr. Teller, excited. "He was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and he had a snake tattooed on his left arm." "Hair colour?" "Maybe dark, but his head was shaved. He had a thin face, black eyes, and a long nose." "Clothes?" "Like I told you, he had a short-sleeved shirt on, blue it was, and grey trousers." Hamish surveyed the shopkeeper with a shrewd look in his hazel eyes. "I'm puzzled by the state of your cellar floor." "How's that?" "There were no marks in the dust, no signs of dragging." "Well, maybe they just lifted the stuff up." Jimmy Anderson was exuding the impatient vibes of a man dying for a drink. "Come on, Hamish," he said impatiently. "Let forensics get on with it while we go over what we've got." Hamish reluctantly followed him over to the pub. "Maybe I'll nip back and tell those chaps from forensic about that cellar floor." "Ach, leave them, they know their job." Jimmy ordered 2 double whiskies. "Just the one, then," said Hamish. "I don't trust that man Teller one bit." Finally, he dragged a reluctant Jimmy away from the bar. Mr. Teller was serving a woman with groceries. "I think you should close up for the day," said Hamish. Mr. Teller jerked a thumb towards the back shop. "They said it was all right." "Let us through," said Hamish. Mr. Teller lifted the flap on the counter. Hamish and Jimmy walked through to the back shop. "How's it going?" Jimmy asked one of the men. "Nothing much," he said. "Looks like a straightforward break-in. Can't get much outside. There's gravel there. Nothing but a pair of size 11 footprints at the top of the cellar stairs." "Those are mine," said Hamish. "But what about the cellar itself and the stairs? When I looked down there seemed to be nothing but undisturbed dust." "Then you need your eyes tested, laddie. The thieves swept the place clean, and the stairs." "What?" Hamish had a sinking feeling in his stomach. "Have a look. We're finished down there." Hamish went to the cellar door, switched on the light and walked down the steps. He could see sweeping brush marks in the dust. "Those weren't there before," he said angrily. "Taylor must have done it when you pair were out the back." Hamish retreated wrathfully to the shop, followed by Jimmy. "Why did you sweep the cellar?" he demanded angrily. Mr. Teller looked the picture of outraged innocence. "I never did. I went back outside to ask them if they wanted a cup of tea. I am a respectable tradesman and a member of the Rotary Club. And the Freemasons. I shall be speaking to your superior officer." "Speak all you want," shouted Hamish. "I'll have you." "Come on, Hamish." Jimmy drew him outside the shop. "Back to the bar, Hamish. A dram'll soothe you down." "I've had enough, and you'd better not have any more. You're driving." "One won't hurt," coaxed Jimmy, urging Hamish into the dark interior of the bar. When he had got their drinks, he led Hamish to a corner table. "Now, Hamish, couldn't you be mistaken? When anyone mentions Freemasons, my heart sinks. The Big Cheese is a member." The Big Cheese was the chief superintendent, Peter Daviett. "I'm sure as sure," said Hamish. "So what do you suggest we do if the wee man's books are in order and tie in with Frog's records of deliveries?" "I don't know," fretted Hamish. "It's your word against his." "You'd think the word of a policeman would count for something these days." "Not against a Freemason and a member of the Rotary," said Jimmy cynically. Hamish made up his mind. "I'm off to Frog's. You can have my drink." Jimmy eyed the whisky longingly. "I should report what you're doing to Blair." "Leave it a bit." "OK, but keep in touch. I'll see if I can sweat Teller a bit. The wonders of forensic science, eh?" "There's something up with that lot from Strathbane. It seems to me they're aye skimping the job because they've got a football match to go to or something." Hamish drove to Strathbane after looking up frogs in a copy of the Highlands and Islands phone book he kept in the Land Rover. Their offices were situated down at the docks, an area of Strathbane that Hamish loathed. The rare summer sunshine might bring out the beauty of the Highland countryside, but all it did was make the docks smell worse, a combination of stale fish, rotting vegetables, and what Victorian ladies used to describe as something much worse. The offices had a weather-faded sign above the door. Frog's Whisky and Wine Distributors. He pushed open the door and went in. "Why, Mary!" he exclaimed, recognising the small girl behind the desk. "What are you doing here?" Mary Bissett was a resident of Lochdubh, small and pert. Her normally cheeky face, however, wore a harassed look. "I'm a temp, Hamish," she said. "I can't get the hang of this computer." "Where's the boss?" "Out in the town at some meeting." "Who is he?" "Mr. Dunblane." "Not Mr. Frog?" "I think there was a Mr. Frog one time or another. Oh, Hamish, what am I to do?" "Let me see. Move over." Hamish sat down at the computer and switched it on. Nothing happened. He twisted his lanky form around and looked down. "Mary, Mary, you haven't got the damn thing plugged in." She giggled. Hamish plugged in the computer. "What do you want?" "The word processing thingy. I've got letters to write." "Before I do that, do you know where he keeps the accounts books?" "In the safe." Hamish's face fell. "But you're the police. I suppose it would be all right to open it up for you." "Do you know the combination?" "It's one of the old-fashioned things. The key's on the wall with the other keys in the inner office." Hamish went into the inner office. "Where is everyone?" he asked over his shoulder. "Tam and Jerry, they work here. They've gone into town with Mr. Dunblane." Hamish grinned. There, on a board with other keys, and neatly labelled "Safe," was the key he wanted. "Come in, Mary," he said. "You'd better be a witness to this." Hamish opened the safe. There was a large quantity of banknotes on the lower shelf. On the upper shelf were 2 large ledgers marked "Accounts." He took them out and relocked the safe. He sat down at a desk and began to go through them. "Keep a lookout, Mary," he said, "and scream if you see anyone." "What's this all about?" He grinned at her. "If this works out, I'll take you out for dinner one evening and tell you." Chief Superintendent Peter Daviot had finished his speech to the Strathbane Businessmen's Association. He enjoyed being a guest speaker at affairs such as these, but his enjoyment was not to last for long. He had just regained his seat to gratifying applause when his mobile phone rang. He excused himself from the table and went outside to answer it. It was Detective Chief Inspector Blair. "Macbeth's landed us in the shit," growled Blair. "Moderate your language," snapped Daviot. "What's up?" "Teller's shop up in Brakey was broken into and all his booze stolen. Macbeth's accusing Teller of covering up evidence, and Teller is threatening to sue." "Dear me, you'd better get up there and defuse the situation." "Anderson's up there." "Go yourself. This requires the attention of a senior officer, and tell Macbeth to report to me immediately." When Daviot returned to police headquarters, he was told, to his surprise, that Hamish Macbeth was waiting to see him. "That was quick," he said to his secretary, Helen. "Where is he?" "In your office," said Helen sourly. She loathed Hamish. Daviot pushed open the door and went in. Hamish got to his feet, clutching a sheaf of photocopied papers. "What's all this about, Macbeth? I hear there has been a complaint about you." "It's about Taylor's grocery," said Hamish. "He claims to have had all his booze stolen, booze that was supplied by Frogs. These are photocopies of the accounts books at Frogs. They are an eye-opener. The last delivery to Taylor is recorded in one set of books, but this other set shows 5 more shopkeepers from all over who claimed insurance and were paid 50% of the insurance money." "How did you come by this?" "Dunblane, the boss, and 2 others were out. I know the temp. She let me into the safe."
"Macbeth, you cannot do that without a search warrant."
"So I need one now. The temp won't talk. We'd better move fast."
"I sent Blair up to Brakey because Teller was threatening to sue. I'll issue that search warrant and we'll take Detective McNabb and 2 police officers and get round there."
It was late evening by the time Hamish Macbeth drove back to Lochdubh. He was a happy, contented man. Blair had returned from Brakey in time to hear about the success of the operation. The 5 other shopkeepers were being rounded up. They had claimed on supposedly stolen stock, taken it themselves and hidden it, so they gained half the insurance money and still had their stock after they had paid Dunblane. That strange half-light of a northern Scottish summer, where it never really gets dark, bathed the countryside. The gloaming, where, as some of the older people still believed, the fairies lay in wait for the unwary traveller. As Hamish opened the police station door, Lugs barked a reproachful welcome. Hamish took the dog out for a walk and then returned to prepare them both some supper. There came a furious knocking at the kitchen door, just as he had put Lug's food bowl on the floor and was sitting down at the table to enjoy his own supper. He opened the door and found himself confronted with the angry figure of Mary Bissett's mother.
"You leave my daughter alone, d'ye hear?" she shouted. "She's only 20. Find someone your own age."
Hamish blinked at her. "Your daughter was of great help in our inquiries into an insurance fraud," he said. "I couldn't tell her what it was about, but promised to take her out for dinner by the way of thanks and tell her then."
"Oh, yeah," she sneered. "Well, romance someone of your own age. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Casanova!"
And with that, she stormed off. Hamish slammed the door. "Women," he thought. "I'm only in my mid-30s and I've just been made to feel like a dirty old man." Chapter 2. The wife was pretty, trifling, childish, weak. She could not think, but would not cease to speak. George Crabbe. Hamish sat down at his computer in the morning to type out a full report of the insurance frauds. His long fingers flew rapidly over the keys. It was still sunny outside, and he was anxious to get out and go about his normal business of sloping around and gossiping with the villagers. The phone rang. He looked at it reluctantly for a few moments and then picked it up.
"Hamish,"
said a scared little voice.
"it's me, Bella Comyn."
"Morning, Bella. What can I do for you?"
"I'm frightened, Hamish. I want to leave him, but I'm frightened of what he'll do."
"Where is he at the moment?"
"He's down at the slaughterhouse in Strathbane."
"Give me half an hour and I'll be over." Hamish typed busily, finished the report, sent it over to police headquarters, and then decided to find out what was up with Bella. He turned over in his mind what he knew about her and her husband, Sean, while he drove out in the direction of their croft. Sean had reached the age of 40 2 years before. He was a quiet, taciturn man. Then he came back from a trip to Inverness with a new bride, Bella. Bella was 15 years younger than he, and the locals had murmured that never was there a more unsuitable crofter's wife. She wore flimsy, flirty clothes, and could be seen teetering around Lochdubh in unsuitable high heels. She giggled and prattled, and had seemed relatively happy. Hamish parked his car outside their whitewashed croft house and knocked on the door. Bella opened it.
"I'm right glad you've come," she said. "I've been wondering what to do."
Hamish removed his cap and followed her into the kitchen.
"Would you like a cup of tea?"
"Maybe later. Tell me what's up." She sat down at the kitchen table. Her once dyed blonde hair was showing nearly 2 inches of black at the roots and was scraped back from her face. Her pale blue eyes were red with recent weeping.
"I can't take any more," she said. "It's like being in prison. I can't go out anywhere. No movies, no meals out, just stuck here, day in, day out."
"Does he beat you?"
"No, he doesn't have to. He just threatens to, and I do what he wants. Look at my hair," she wailed, holding out a strand for Hamish's inspection. "He says if I dye it again, he'll kill me."
"What about marriage counselling?"
"Can you see Sean going to a marriage counsellor? We keep ourselves to ourselves. That's what he says, day in and day out."
"Where would you go?" She nervously twisted her gold wedding ring around her finger.
"I've got a friend in Inverness. I should have married him. I phoned him. He said I could come to him any time I wanted."
"So why do you need me?"
"Folks round here say you're prepared to bend the rules a bit to help people out. I want time to pack up my things and get out."
She looked anxiously at the clock.
"We've only got about half an hour. I can't drive. I thought you could lock him up for something and then give me a lift down to the bus in Lochdubh."
"I canna do that," exclaimed Hamish, whose accent always became broader when he was upset. "You'll need to talk to one of the women."
"I don't know any of them."
"And I canna interfere in a marriage. Och, I tell you what. Leave it with me. I sometimes see you around the village. How do you get down there?"
"Sean drives me down. Then he goes off to the pub while I get the shopping."
"So next time just get on the bus."
"And leave all my things. I've got my mother's jewellery."
"You could put that in your handbag, or in the bottom of a shopping bag."
"He searches my bags the whole time in case someone's been slipping me letters. He checks the phone bill. If I'm still here when it next comes in, he'll ask me what I was doing phoning the police station. I'll need to tell him I saw someone suspicious hanging around."
"So how did you get in touch with this fellow in Inverness?"
"Last time I was down in Lochdubh, I phoned from the telephone box on the front as soon as Sean was in the pub. A couple of pounds it took, and that was the very last of my own money. He doesn't allow me any except for the shopping, and when he gets home he ticks every item off on the list."
"You need some friends here, women friends. Let me try to fix something."
"It won't do any good. He'll send them off."
Hamish suddenly grinned. "He doesn't know Mrs. Wellington, then." Hamish drove back to the police station and put Lugs inside. He was walking up to the manse to see Mrs. Wellington, the minister's wife, when Elspeth caught up with him.
"It's about Stoyer," she said.
"Later, Elspeth," said Hamish curtly. "I'm busy." She gave him an odd, disappointed look and turned away. I shouldn't have been so rude to her, thought Hamish, but one thing at a time. Stoyer can wait. He went on to the manse. Mrs. Wellington was a formidable woman, dressed, as usual, despite the heat, in a tweed jacket, silk blouse and baggy tweed skirt, thick stockings and brogues. "Oh, it's you," she said, ungraciously. "I want to talk to you about a delicate matter," said Hamish. "In trouble with the ladies again," she boomed. "Mary Bissett's mother is going around saying you're chasing her daughter." "That's rubbish. Can I come in?" Hamish followed her into the man's kitchen, a gloomy room which smelled strongly of disinfectant. Man's houses were always dark, he reflected, as if light were considered unholy. He explained Bella's problem. Mrs. Wellington listened carefully and said, "She's a flighty little thing, and he should never have married her. But she does need to get out a bit, and the Mothers' Union always needs new members." "She doesn't have children." "Neither do the Curry sisters," said Mrs. Wellington dryly, "but that doesn't stop them from trying to run everything. Leave it with me, Hamish." Hamish walked back down to the Highland Times office to look for Elspeth. He found her, sitting at her desk, moodily stabbing a pencil into her hair. "So, what about Stoyer?" he asked. "I took a run over there," she said. "Nothing. No one in the church." "So that's all you wanted to tell me?" "I think you should go back. There's an odd feeling about." "What sort of feeling?" "Fear." "It's probably the fear of some Calvinistic god. They seem to have gone all religious." "Could be, but I smell something else." Hamish suddenly felt ravenously hungry. He had not eaten any breakfast. To make up to Elspeth for his recent rudeness, he was about to ask her to join him at the Italian restaurant, but she looked up at him and grinned and said, "What's all this about you romancing Mary Bissett?" "There is nothing in that," said Hamish stiffly, and walked out. "Irritating lassie." Hamish went back to the police station and took a trout out of his freezer to defrost. Lugs let out a low, grumbling sound. He did not like fish, and felt his master was being selfish, but he brightened up when Hamish began to fry up some lamb's kidneys for him. Food ready, he loaded it all on a tray and carried it out to the front garden. He placed Lugs's bowl on the grass and settled down to enjoy a meal of trout dipped in oatmeal, salad and chips. The foxy face of Jimmy Anderson peered over the hedge. "That looks good," he said. He opened the gate and came in. "I hope you've eaten," said Hamish. "I don't feel like cooking any more." "No, I'm fine." Jimmy sat down in a chair next to him. He looked around, at the rambling roses tumbling over the front door, and then over to the hedge, to where the loch sparkled in the sun. "You've got the life of Riley here, Hamish," he said. "Enjoy it while you can." "What do you mean?" demanded Hamish sharply. Well, because of you solving that big insurance case, Davitt's beginning to make noises about you being wasted up here, and Blair's encouraging him. Why, he loathes my guts. He feels if you were transferred to Strathbane, well, you'd be just another copper, and he'd be more on hand to take the credit for anything you found out. And what brings you up here? Day off? I came to warn you about what was brewing, and I think you should be offering me something to drink. Hamish sighed, but went into the house and came back with a bottle half full of whisky and a glass, which he set on the table. Help yourself. Thanks. So what do I do to stop getting a promotion? Asked Hamish. I dunno. Disgrace yourself. Mildly. How do I do that? Jimmy took a mouthful of whisky. You've always managed before, he said. I do not want to go to Strathbane, mourned Hamish. He waved his hand round about. Look what I've got to lose. It's grand today, I'll give you that. But what about the long winters? Believe me, the long winters in Strathbane would seem worse than they do here. Have it your way. Once a peasant, always a peasant. Stuck up here talking to the sheep would kill me. If the bottle doesn't get to you first. I can take it. Wait a wee bit, I've got an idea. Jimmy drank more whisky. There's a pet of Blair's just joined the force. Red-hot keen. Arrest anyone on sight. Today he's standing out on the main road afore you get to Strathbane with a speed camera. You could pelt past him at 100 miles an hour. In a police vehicle, he wouldn't do a thing. He'd think I was chasing someone. Get a private car. Get drunk enough and see what happens. I'd lose my licence. A policeman? He'd be told to hush it up. Hamish snorted in disbelief. By Blair? Come on, Jimmy, have some sense. No, by me. He crawls to me because he wants to make CID. I'll be on hand to tell him to drop it and leak it to Davitt. Davitt hates drunken drivers, but I'll tell him it'll be bad for the police image if it ever gets in the papers. Hamish looked at Jimmy thoughtfully and then said, I'll get another glass. PC Johnny Peters stifled a yawn. He was bored and tired. Nearly the end of his shift. Like Blair, he was originally from Glasgow and distrusted all Highlanders. He guessed that, in their primitive, almost telepathic way, the news of his speed trap had spread far and wide. Cars had passed him doing a mere 30 miles an hour, although it was a 60-mile-an-hour area. His radio crackled. Peters here, he said. Anderson here, came the voice. Just had a report of a stolen car, a white Ford Escort belonging to Mrs. Angela Brodie of Lochdubh. Peters had just taken down a note of the registration number when his sharp eyes spotted a small white car on the horizon. He signed off, ran to his car and swung it across the road. At first it seemed as if the approaching car, which was coming at great speed, would hit him, but the driver braked about 1 foot from him and sat behind the wheel, smiling inanely. Peters climbed out and approached the car and rapped on the driver's window. Hamish Macbeth wound down the window and let a strong smell of whisky out into the air. Out! Shouted Peters. Hamish was breathalyzed, handcuffed, charged with being drunk and driving a stolen vehicle. He felt relieved to be out of Angela's car. He had driven painfully, carefully, until just before the speed trap, when he had accelerated. As Hamish was led out of the police car, Jimmy Anderson was waiting. Peters, he said, what are you doing arresting Hamish Macbeth? He's the hero of the hour. He's the one that solved that big insurance case. I'm just doing my duty, said Peters primly. He is drunk and was driving a stolen car. Was it that Ford Escort? Yes. Ugh. Dr. Brodie has just phoned. It was his wife who reported the car stolen, not knowing her husband had given Hamish permission to drive it. Nonetheless, Here, take the handcuffs off. You'll learn that we try to keep things like this away from the press. I'll talk to Davitt. Let him handle it.
Peters looked doubtful, but was obviously impressed by the fact that Anderson appeared to be on easy terms with the boss. He unlocked the handcuffs on Hamish's wrists.
"Come on, Hamish," said Jimmy.
Hamish followed him, with the stiff, stork-like walk of the drunk.
"Lots of water, Jimmy," he whispered, "and coffee. I'll leave you in the canteen while I talk to Davitt."
Peter Davitt listened grimly to Jimmy's tale.
"I hope he has been charged," he said. "Well, that's why I came to see you, sir. Macbeth's a popular man with a lot of friends in the press. If he's charged, it'll go to the sheriff's court and get in the papers. Bad for our image, sir. Besides, we don't want some reporter remembering how that drunk-driving episode of Chief Inspector Blair's was hushed up."
Blair had wrapped his car round a tree the year before, after drinking heavily at a police party.
"Where's Macbeth now?" "In the canteen." To think I was going to promote that man. That such ability should be allied to such dangerous behaviour. May I offer a suggestion, sir? Go on. Macbeth manages to do very well where he is. He's never been one for the bottle. This was a one-off. Remember that fiancée of his, Priscilla Halberton Smythe? Yes. Well, he's learned she's getting married, and maybe that's what upset him. Send him to me, and get a police officer over to Lochdubh to pick up Mrs. Brodie so that she may reclaim her car.
5 minutes later, awash with mineral water and black coffee, a slightly more sober Hamish Macbeth faced his boss.
"Sit down," barked Davitt. "I am sure standing must be difficult for you. This is a bad business. You should have your licence removed and be suspended from duty." Hamish let out a giggle. "And just what is so funny, officer?" "I couldn't help thinking of all the cases I would solve if I were suspended. They detectives and policemen on the television are always being suspended from duty, and that's when they solve cases." "Pull yourself together, man. This must be hushed up for the sake of our reputation. Do you know I was going to promote you? That's all off now. You are only fit to be a village policeman. I am sorely disappointed in you." "I am very sorry, sir." "Don't let it happen again. Get out of here, and sober up."
"I hope it worked," said Angela Brodie as she drove Hamish back to Lochdubh.
"Oh, it worked all right. Thanks, Angela. Keep your eyes on the road and stop staring at me."
"How drunk are you?"
"Nearly sober. I drank just enough to get over the limit."
"This car reeks of booze."
Hamish looked guilty. "I spilled some on the seats."
"Then, when you get back, you can get some upholstery cleaner from Patel's and clean the lot."
"Yes, Angela."
"Mrs. Wellington called on me before the police came to collect me. Seems you've launched her on a crusade to help Bella Comyn. She says she's a battered wife."
"Not yet, but I gather her husband bullies her and won't allow her any freedom."
"He does seem besotted with her. Do you really think he might harm her one day?"
"She seems to think so."
"I'm going out there tomorrow with Mrs. Wellington to see her. Let me know how you get on." Back in Lochdubh, Hamish bought upholstery cleaner and diligently cleaned out the front seats of Angela's car. His mouth was dry and had a foul taste, and his head was throbbing. At last he had finished. All he wanted now was 2 aspirin and a long sleep. He was heading for the police station when Elspeth came running up to him.
"Hamish, there's a bit more about Stoyer."
His headache was now dreadful.
"Is anyone dead or hurt or burgled?" "No, it's not that, it's—" "Leave it, Elspeth. Talk to me tomorrow."
He strode off, leaving the reporter staring after him. In the morning, he awoke refreshed,
and with a hearty appetite. He went along to Patel's to buy bacon. As he entered the shop door, he could hear the voices of the Curry sisters, Nessie and Jessie, shrill with excitement.
"I tell you, he was cleaning out her car and stinking of the booze," Nessie was saying. "Why would he be doing that?"
"Why don't you just ask him?" said Patel.
"Because he'll just lie, said Jessie.
"If you want to know," said Hamish angrily, "I was taking some whisky to a sick friend in Strathbane, and Mrs. Brodie was driving me. She hit a rock, and the top was loose, and some of it spilled on the upholstery." The shop fell silent. The Curry sisters, who hated being caught out gossiping, a thing they were fond of saying that they never did, paid for their groceries and hurried out. Hamish bought a packet of bacon and headed home. He had no need to buy eggs. His hens supplied him with plenty. He turned over the events of the day before, and then remembered Elspeth. He simply must stop being rude to her. After breakfast he went to the local newspaper office, to be told she was out reporting on a flower show over at Dornoch. He wondered whether to drive over to Stoyr, but then dismissed it. He had other villages on his beat to visit, and it wasn't as if anything criminal had taken place in Stoyr. He returned with lugs in the late evening, satisfied that things on his beat were as quiet as they had been earlier that summer. He cooked a meal for himself and his dog, and then was picking up the phone to call Elspeth when it rang. Mrs. Wellington's voice boomed down the line. "You've got to do something." "What's happened?" "Sean's left Bella. I was up there early in the day with Angela Brodie to suggest that Bella should start attending the Mothers' Union meetings. Sean was there. He seemed pleased at the idea. Everything seemed normal, but Bella's just phoned in a state. She says he just walked out, said he wasn't coming back." "I'll go right now and see her." "I'll meet you there." Bella's eyes were again red with weeping, and she had a black eye. Mrs. Wellington held her hand while she blurted out her story. Sean, she said, had pretended to be delighted at the invitation for her to join the Mothers' Union. After Angela and Mrs. Wellington had left, he began to rant and say she had set it up so that she would have an excuse to slip out and meet other men. Then he had blacked her eye and said he was sick of her and he was leaving forever. "You're better off without him," said the minister's wife. "How will you manage?" asked Hamish. "For money, I mean." "We have a joint account. I can draw on that." "I thought Sean didn't let you have any money of your own." "He wouldn't let me draw any without his permission, but believe me, this is one time I'm not going to ask." "So what time did he leave?" "About 11 o'clock. "But you didn't phone Mrs. Wellington until this evening." Bella hung her head. "I thought he would come back. I never thought he'd leave me. I'd given up the idea of running away." There came a long howl from outside. Bella jumped nervously. "What's that?" "It's my dog," said Hamish. "I'll see what's up." Mrs. Wellington tut-tutted her disapproval. "You shouldn't take that dog with you everywhere." Hamish went out to the Land Rover. He opened the passenger door and lugs stumbled down to the ground. He raised his leg against the wheel. "So that's all it was." Hamish went back inside. "Maybe Sean's just taken himself off to cool down," he said. "Mind if I have a look around the house?" Was there a flicker of apprehension in Bella's eyes? "Go ahead," she said. Hamish went through to the living room. A nearly new three-piece suite in a mushroom shade dominated the small room. There was a display cabinet with various pieces of china against one wall. No open fire, just a bar heater. Obviously the room was kept for best, a visit from the minister, the rare party. He went next door to the bedroom. The double bed was covered in a blood-red shiny quilt. What was obviously Bella's side of the bed had a bedside table with film magazines and paperback romances stacked on it. He went to the table at Sean's side. On top was an alarm clock and nothing else. He jerked open the top drawer. A Gideon Bible and several packets of condoms. Hadn't Sean wanted children? He went out and through to the back of the small house and pushed open a door. This was Sean's office. There was an old-fashioned roll-top desk with neatly stacked papers beside a computer. He sifted through them. Farm accounts, sheep-dip papers, electricity and phone bills. Nothing that could give him a clue to Sean's disappearance. He opened the drawers and carefully went through the contents until, in the bottom drawer, he found 2 passports, one belonging to Sean and the other to Bella. He opened Bella's. It was still in her maiden name, Bella Wilson. He went through everything again, but without finding a single clue to explain why Sean had left. The man hadn't been gone long, he thought. It was surely a waste of police time, panicking so early over his disappearance. He was driving back along the waterfront when he saw Elspeth Grant. He screeched to a halt. "Want to come to the station for a cup of tea?" "Why?" "I've been a bit rude to you, but I've had other things on my mind." Elspeth swung round in the direction of the police station. "Meet you there," she said over her shoulder. Hamish drove on. She was walking quickly, and by the time he had parked the Land Rover, she was waiting at the kitchen door. He unlocked the door and ushered her into the kitchen. "Any crime for me?" asked Elspeth as Hamish plugged in the kettle, a recent purchase. The summer had been so warm that there had been little need to light the stove every day. Hamish told her about the insurance fraud. When he had finished, she asked, "Do you know when that will come up in court?" "I'll find out for you. I've just been up to see Bella Common." "Lochdubh's dizzy blonde. What's up with her?" "Her husband's cleared off. Mind you, he only left this morning. He'll probably be back. She claims he bullied and threatened her." "I saw them at the Highland Games last year. He seemed besotted with her." "I'm sure he's all that. Maybe that's why he keeps such a strong grip on her. Here's your tea. Help yourself to milk and sugar." "Why is Lugs pawing at my skirt?" "He likes tea a lot," said Hamish. "It's unnatural in a dog. I give him some on his birthday and at Christmas." Elspeth hooted with laughter. "You treat that dog like a bairn, but then the childless always do." Hamish flushed with anger. "I'm getting a bit weary of your personal remarks, Elspeth." "Sorry. I think you ought to take another look at Stoyer." "Why? Because you sense they're frightened? I need facts." "Well, there's a Mr. and Mrs. Bain from Stoyer. They've moved into a cottage up the back." "So?" "They seem scared and won't talk about Stoyer." Elspeth brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. "Tell you what, let's go together to a church service on Sunday. Suss out the place." "I may be busy," said Hamish loftily. "You're just cross because I teased you about your dog. Come on, Hamish. Might be a laugh." "All right," he said reluctantly. "The service is usually at 11 in the morning. I'll pick you up at 10. "Right you are, copper. I'd best be going." She turned in the doorway and looked at him thoughtfully. Then she said, "If it were me, I wouldn't believe a word Bella says." "And what makes you say that?" She grinned. "Just a feeling." Hamish went through to the police office after she had left and switched on his computer. After typing in a password, he typed in the name Bella Wilson. He stared at the screen. Bella Wilson of Donnell Street, Inverness, had been charged, aged 13, at the juvenile court with bullying one Aileen Hendry by repeatedly punching and kicking her. At age 18, she had been charged with hitting one Henry Cathcart on the head with a poker. Hamish leaned back in his chair and scowled horribly. Sean was gone, and Bella was in charge of the joint account. Where was Sean? Chapter 3. Come away, death, and in sad cypress let me be laid. Fly away, breath, I am slain by a fair, cruel maid. William Shakespeare. The next day, Hamish went up to talk to Bella. He heard her singing in the kitchen as he approached the front door. He knocked, and while he waited for her to answer, he turned and looked around. There was no garden, just sheep-cropped turf and old rusting machinery, and over by the wall was a freshly dug patch of earth. Bella opened the door. Her hair was newly blonded, and she looked fresh and pretty.
"Have you found him?"
she asked. "Not yet. Can I come in?"
"All right."
She stood back reluctantly. Hamish walked into the kitchen and took off his cap. "Sit down, Bella," he said.
"What's this all about?"
"It is about your police record," said Hamish, his accent becoming more sibilant with worry.
"That was a long time ago," she said defiantly, "and on both occasions I was provoked."
Hamish took a deep breath. "Have you been battering your husband?"
"What?" she shrieked. "A wee thing like me with a big man like that?"
"It does happen."
"No, I told you the truth. He's the bully."
"There's a freshly dug patch in the ground outside. Who dug it?"
"Me. I was going to put in some flowers."
"So you won't mind if I take a spade and have a look?" Bella's face hardened.
"You'll need a search warrant."
"Oh, I'll get one. But in order to get one, I'll need to report your criminal record, and it won't just be me, but the top brass from Strathbane who'll question you, and a forensic team will be going over your house."
"Oh, dig it up then," she snarled. "The spade's by the kitchen door."
Hamish went to the door and seized the spade. He went out into the bright sunlight. He began to dig in the freshly turned earth. Only about 2 feet below the surface, he uncovered a dead collie. He picked out the body and laid it on the turf. It had died recently, been killed, for its head had been smashed in. He sat back on his heels, feeling sick. He turned his head. Bella was standing by the kitchen door. "You did this," he said flatly.
"Sean did it," she said. "I didn't want you to know."
Hamish rose and went to the Land Rover, called Strathbane, and spoke rapidly. Then he returned and stood guard over the dead dog.
"You interfering bastard,"
hissed Bella, her face now ugly with rage.
"I tell you, he walked out and said he wasn't coming back."
"You will be asked by police from Strathbane, who will be here soon, to go with them to police headquarters for questioning."
"I thought you were the policeman here," she jeered.
"Not when it is a question of murder," said Hamish quietly. After Bella had been taken away, he returned to the police station to type out his report. Then, once he had finished, he leant back in his chair. What if Sean had really run off because he was frightened of her? He would need money. Hamish put on his cap and went out and walked along to the bank and asked to see the manager, Mr. McCallum. "It's about Sean Comyn," said Hamish. "He's gone missing, feared dead. But has he drawn out any money recently?" "I should not be discussing a customer's account. That's confidential." "A possible murder does not keep anything confidential." "I suppose if I don't help you, you'll get a warrant." The manager switched on the computer on his desk. Hamish waited patiently while he typed in various codes. "Here we are," said Mr. McCallum. "Sean Comyn made out a cheque to Queen and Barry estate agents in Strathbane." "When?" "Yesterday." "Anything else?" £200 out of a cash machine in Strathbane the same day." "Well, it looks as if the man is still alive, thank God." Hamish went back to the police station and dialed the estate agents. He explained the police were trying to contact a Sean Comyn. "We rented him a cottage. He wanted somewhere cheap. We got him a place in Stoyer." "Address?" "Number 6, the waterfront." "Thanks." Stoyer again, thought Hamish as he drove off, leaving behind a sulky lugs. When he descended into the huddle of houses which made up the tiny village of Stoyer, he was relieved to see people moving about and men working at the nets. Elspeth and her fears. He parked outside the pub and walked along the waterfront to number 6. It had been a fisherman's cottage and had a run-down appearance, unlike its neighbours. He knocked on the door. To his relief, Sean Comyn himself answered it. He was unshaven and red-eyed. "What's the matter?" he asked. "Bella?" "A word with you. Let me in." Sean led him into a front room. It was dark and sparsely furnished, with a few shabby chairs and a sofa. "Before we start," said Hamish, taking out his mobile phone, "I'll phone police headquarters and say you've been found." Sean tried to say something, but Hamish held up a hand for silence. "In a minute," he said. He reported to Jimmy Anderson that Sean had been found. "If she's been beating him," said Jimmy, "will he press charges?" "I'll see what I can do." Hamish rang off and turned to Sean. "Before I begin, I want you to take this phone and call your bank manager and freeze your account, or, if I'm not mistaken, she'll clean you out." Sean took the phone from him. He did not ask questions or protest, simply phoned the bank and did what Hamish had suggested. Then he handed the phone back and sat with his hands between his legs, slumped forward. "Now," said Hamish gently. "She'd been battering you, hadn't she?" There was a long silence, and then Sean said wearily, "How was I to know? She seemed so pretty, so fragile, like a wee bird. It started soon after we were married. She'd get this blank look in the eyes and then start hitting me with anything that was handy. The other day I said I wasn't taking any more. I was leaving her. She laughed in my face. And then, still looking at me, she punched herself in the eye, hard. 'I'll say you did that,' she said. 'You'll need to file charges.' 'I can't do that, Hamish. I'd be the laughing-stock of the Highlands.' 'She killed one of your collies,' Hamish told him about the grave. He turned a muddy colour, but said, 'I can't let folks know she was beating me.' 'They'll know soon enough. Police and forensic have been crawling over your Croft house looking for your dead body.' 'But if it goes to court, it'll be in all the papers. I can't do it.' Hamish sighed and looked around. 'Who owns this place?' 'Some couple. They rent it out to summer visitors. They haven't been able to rent it out for a while.' 'Do you have a phone?' 'Over there. It's a coin box phone. Everything's got a coin box. The gas and the electric.' 'You can't go on living here. Think of your beasts. It's hot weather, and Bella's more likely to take a hammer to them than give them water.' He shuddered. 'Give me a bit of peace, Hamish, till I get my courage back. But I'm not pressing charges.' Hamish took a note of his phone number. 'I'll be back,' he said. Once outside, Hamish walked back to the Land Rover and phoned Jimmy again. 'So far he won't press charges.' 'Well, the RSPCA will,' said Jimmy, meaning the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. 'We found a bloodied hammer. Haven't got a report back yet on where the blood came from, but if it's got her fingerprints on it, and if Sean's alive, then it stands to reason it's the dog's blood. And Sean will pay her fine and be stuck in Stour until his croft rots.' 'Where is she now?' asked Hamish. 'Johnny Peters is driving her home.' 'Good luck to him. I'll go and see her.' Once more to Lochdubh to file another report, and out to Sean's croft. As he approached the door, he knew instinctively that there was no one at home. He tried the door. Locked. Maybe she wasn't back yet. And yet he had taken his time over the report. He got back into the Land Rover and drove down into Lochdubh and stopped outside Patel's grocery store. A daily bus would have left for Inverness half an hour ago. He went into the shop and asked Mr. Patel, "Did anyone see if Bella Common left on the bus?" Nessie Curry appeared behind him, her eyes gleaming behind thick glasses. "The poor wee thing left on the bus with 2 big suitcases. A policeman drove her to Lochdubh. What's been happening?" Hamish didn't answer. He went back to the police station and phoned Jimmy. "Bella Common left for Inverness on the bus. Johnny Peters drove her there. What was he on about?" "I'll see if he's back yet and ring you." Hamish took Lugs out for a walk and then fed the dog. He was just wondering whether to ring Jimmy again when the phone rang. It was Jimmy. Peters didn't know anything about why she was at police headquarters, he said. He'd just come on duty and was simply told to take her back to Lochdubh. She spun him a story that she had gone to report her husband missing and that she was so upset she wanted to stay with relatives in Inverness. She packed in a short time and he drove her to Lochdubh. She'd called the bank, and whatever she heard upset her. I told Sean to tell the bank to freeze the account. It was a joint account. Anyway, she got on the bus and off she went. You'd best phone Inverness Police. We'll get her for the dog, if nothing else. Will do. Thank God she couldn't drive, or she'd have taken Sean's car as well. I'll get over to Stoyer and give him a lift home. Why Stoyer? Asked Hamish, as he drove the crofter towards Lochdubh. It was the cheapest rent I could find, said Sean. I only took it for a month, holiday let. Have you any idea where Bella might have gone? She's an only child, and her mother and father are dead. What about relatives at your wedding? There weren't any. We were married in the register office, and 2 of my cousins acted as witnesses. Any friends? Hamish wondered whether to ask about the man in Inverness that Bella had said she ought to have married, but decided against it. Not that I know of. Didn't that strike you as odd? No, I thought she just wanted to be with me. I couldn't get over the fact that someone so young and pretty could fancy me. I hope you're over her, Sean, and if she comes back, you're to phone me immediately. I'll do that. She shouldn't have killed my dog. Which one? I don't know. Probably Bob, he said gloomily. Always was a friendly dog. Now, Queenie, the other, was mortal scared of her. As they approached Sean's croft, Sean said, It's odd. Things'll be the same as they were afore I married her, but not the same, if you know what I mean. I'll aye be frightened I'll turn round and see her standing there. She's wanted on a charge for killing the dog. Cruelty. She's made a run for it. I doubt if she'll be back. Get yourself a lawyer and get a divorce. Hamish parked the Land Rover and Sean climbed stiffly down, and then heaved his suitcase out of the back. Thanks, Hamish. I'd best come in with you, said Hamish. See if she's taken anything she shouldn't have. Sean unlocked the door. Hamish waited in the kitchen while Sean looked around the place. Nothing taken but her clothes and things, he said. He went to the door and gave a shrill whistle. A collie came bounding up to him. This is Queenie, he said, fondling the animal's coat. I'll be all right now, Hamish. Don't keep the truth of the matter to yourself, Sean. She's put it about that you were the one who was bullying her. There's no shame in it. Folks wouldn't expect you to hit back at a lassie. I'll think about it. Hamish went back to the police station and phoned Jimmy Anderson. Any news? Not a sight of her, said Jimmy. Police were waiting at Inverness station, but she never got off the bus. The driver said she got off at Dingwall. No record of her having taken another bus, or even the train from Dingwall. She's gone to ground somewhere. Are the police at Dingwall checking the taxi services? Nobody's checking anything anymore, Hamish. Why? Blair says it's a waste of manpower looking for a lassie who killed a dog. He instructed us all to have nothing more to do with it. Doesn't the silly chiel know she might kill a man or woman the next time? He doesn't care. While you're on the phone, have you heard any reports of anything going on in Stoyer? Where's Stoyer? It's a wee village up on the coast. That's your beat. No, I haven't heard anything. Hamish thanked him and rang off. Then he phoned Mrs. Wellington and told her the truth about Sean's marriage. At first she wouldn't believe him, until he told her about the death of the dog. A woman who would do that is capable of anything, said Mrs. Wellington. Hamish then phoned Angela Brodie with the same information, and then asked, There's a new family in Lochdubh called Beaton. Where's their house? Up the back, the one that belonged to the dustman's wife, Martha MacLeod. Remember? She and your ex-policeman moved up to live in the Tommel Castle Hotel after they got married. Clary, Hamish's policeman when Hamish had last, briefly, been elevated to the rank of sergeant, had left the force to become a chef at the hotel. "I'll call on them tomorrow," said Hamish. "Why?" "Just to be friendly, that's all." But Hamish remembered that Elspeth, in her psychic way, had not trusted Bella, and Elspeth had said the Bains were frightened. Hamish walked past Patel's and up the lane at the back to the Bains' cottage. He knocked on the door, and it was answered by a small, thin woman. She had sallow skin and small black eyes, which regarded him warily. "Mrs. Bain?" "Yes, what's happened? It's not Mary, is it? I sent her down to the shop." "No, it's only a friendly call. I heard you had moved from Stour." "Yes, that's right. We're fine." She made to close the door. "I just wanted a word with you," said Hamish, not used to unfriendliness. "Is your man at home?" "He's asleep. He's been out all night at the fishing." A small girl behind Hamish piped, "I got the milk, Ma." Hamish swung round. A little girl about 10 years old stood there. "Get in the house this minute," ordered her mother. The girl slid past them and vanished into the cottage. "And is everything all right with you?" pursued Hamish. Yes, fine. Now, if you don't mind, was anything going on at Stour?" She had been about to close the door, but hesitated. "No. Why?" "There was a strange atmosphere when I was there." "Well, you canna be arresting an atmosphere." And with that she closed the door firmly. Hamish pushed back his cap and scratched his fiery hair. He turned and walked back down to the waterfront and along to the harbour. Archie McLean, a fisherman, was sitting on the wall outside his cottage, puffing on a hand-rolled cigarette. "Grand morning, Archie," said Hamish, sitting down next to him. "Aye, it is that." "Don't you ever sleep?" "I will be having a kip this afternoon. Herself is cleaning again." The sound of frantic activity sounded from the cottage behind them. "I went up to see the Bains," said Hamish. "Aye, Harry Bain was out with us last night." "What's he like?" "Quiet wee man, nothing much to say for himself, but a good worker." "He's just moved here from Stour. Have you heard anything about Stour, Archie?" "Nothing much, except they seem to have a rare powerful preacher. The kirk is aye full." "If you get talking to Harry, see if you can find out anything." "I'll do that, but why? You think something criminal's going on?" "I don't know, just a feeling." Hamish went back to the police station after collecting the newspapers from Patel's. Time to relax and forget about Bella and about Stour. He took a deck chair out to the garden and, with lugs at his feet, settled down to read. The phone rang in the police station. Hamish rustled a newspaper impatiently. Let the answering machine pick it up. The window to the police station was open. The answering machine clicked on. Blair's voice broke the peace of the day. "Get yourself over to Stour. Major Jennings' cottage has been blown up." "Where is the Major?" asked Hamish, as he and Jimmy stood with detectives and police officers, surveying the burnt-out shell that had once been the Major's bungalow. "Flying up from the south. We'll have the anti-terrorist squad here. Can't be the IRA this far north." "The Major's retired, but he was once in Army intelligence. May have had something to do with Northern Ireland." "Are they sure it was some sort of explosive? Couldn't have been a faulty Carler gas tank." "Too early to say. Could just be some anti-English bastards. You mind that film Braveheart?" "Of course," said Hamish, "and what a load of inaccurate historical rubbish it was too." "Aye, but you know it caused a lot of anti-English feeling in some weak heads. Then there was that showbiz chap, Cameron Mackintosh, over in Mallaig. His cottage got destroyed." "Well, we'll see," said Hamish uneasily. All the while he thought, this can't be happening in Stour. He looked down at the calm sea and the sun-warmed stone harbour. Something evil was going on here. Blair came marching up to him. "Move your lazy bum, Macbeth, and see what you can get out of the local yokels." Hamish set off down the slope from the ruins of the Major's cottage. He decided to try the manse first. The door was eventually answered by what he at first thought was a young girl. She was wearing a short summer dress, and her hair was in pigtails. Her thin legs ended in white ankle socks and black flat shoes. Her features were small, but then he noticed the thin spidery lines on her face. "Mrs. Mackenzie?"
"Yes, officer. Won't you come in? My husband is going about his parochial duties."
Her voice was soft and lilting. Hamish took off his cap and followed her along a stone-flagged passage to the manse kitchen. The long sash windows were open, and a breeze fluttered the crystal-white net curtains. A scarlet Rayburn cooker stood against one wall, and a dresser with brightly patterned plates against another. There was a scrubbed wooden kitchen table in the centre, surrounded with ladder-back chairs.
"Sit down, officer," said the minister's wife. "Coffee? That would be grand."
She put instant coffee in 2 mugs and poured boiling water from a kettle on top of the stove.
"Help yourself to milk and sugar," she said, sitting down opposite him. "I suppose you've come about that terrible business."
"The Major's cottage, yes. What can you tell me about it?"
"Nothing."
Her eyes were greyish-blue and slightly slanted, the sort of Highland eyes which reflected everything back, in a way without betraying their owner's feelings.
"We were woken up about dawn with this tremendous blast, and the windows of the manse rattled."
"So you got up and went out to have a look?"
"Well, no. We were both still tired, so we went back to sleep."
"Heavens, woman, surely natural curiosity would have impelled you to go out of doors to see what had happened."
"Odd things happen every day," she said serenely. "It is God's will, and it is not up to us to question the will of God."
"But I would think it was up to everyone to question the will of man," said Hamish dryly. He looked at her curiously. "I mean, God didn't blow up the Major's cottage. Some villain or villains did it."
"It could have been lightning or a thunderbolt."
"Meaning God zapped the Major's cottage? Havers! And what do you think a douce body like the Major would have done to incur the wrath of God?" Her thin lips became even thinner as she folded them into a reproving line.
"He did not attend the kirk when he was here."
"The kirk is Free Presbyterian. Stands to reason the Major is probably a member of the Church of England."
"That is as may be."
"And what's that supposed to mean?" She sipped her coffee in silence, while Hamish gave her a frustrated look. At last he said, "So you've nothing to tell me?"
"There's nothing I can tell you."
He stood and picked up his cap. "If you think of anything, let me know."
"You can find your own way out."
"Aye." Baffled, Hamish went off. He stood outside the door of the manse and looked down on the village of Stoyre, a huddle of houses before a tranquil sea. The air smelled fresh and clean. Somewhere up on the hill a sheep bleated. He walked down into the village and into the pub. A few locals were sitting at tables. When he came in, they rose to their feet and went out. Andy Crummock, the landlord, was polishing glasses. "I seem to be bad for business," commented Hamish. "We keep ourselves to ourselves in this village," said Andy, "and we don't like nosy coppers asking questions." "Then get used to it," snapped Hamish, "because I'm the first of many." He took out his notebook. "Now, where were you when the Major's cottage was blown up?" "I was in my bed." "And did you go out to see what happened?" "No, I thought it was thunder." "Man, the blast must have been horrendous. What time did you hear it?" "I looked at the clock. It was just after 5. "Andy, something's going on in this village, and I mean to get to the bottom of it." "Aye, well, that's your job." The pub door opened, and Elspeth came in. Hamish was relieved to see anyone, from outside this strange village. "Come and have a drink," he hailed. He jerked a thumb at Andy. "No use asking him anything." Hamish ordered a tonic water for himself and a whisky for Elspeth, and carried them to a corner table. "Got any news for me?" he asked. "Not a thing. They all heard that blast at dawn, and inexplicably no one admits to going out to see what happened, or even to looking through a window." "Do you still think they're scared of something?" "No, that's the odd thing. They've got carefully blank faces, but underneath they're elated about something. Elated and secretive, like children hiding something." "Don't you think," asked Hamish, surveying her outfit, "that you might get a bit more out of the locals if your clothes weren't so strange?" Elspeth was wearing a grey chiffon blouse with a pair of cut-off denim shorts and clumpy hiking boots. "No, you old fuddy-duddy. No one is going to get anything out of this lot." Hamish looked across her out the window and saw a familiar figure heading for the pub door. "Blair," he hissed, "don't say you saw me." He vaulted the bar and made his way through to the back premises, just as the Detective Chief Inspector came through the door. There was a back storeroom with a door opening onto a weedy garden. In the middle of the storeroom, clutching a Bible and on his knees in prayer, was the landlord. Hamish edged round him and darted out into the sunlight. Andy seemed unaware of his existence. Hamish then went diligently from cottage to cottage, asking questions and getting the same replies as Elspeth had received. He had just left one of the cottages when he heard himself being hailed by Jimmy Anderson. "Get anything?" asked Jimmy. Hamish sighed. "I get the impression they all believe it was the wrath of God. They've never actually attacked anyone English up here before. I mean, they don't even like people from anywhere south of Perth. See Blair? He was heading for the pub. He's probably still there. Well, that'll keep him away for a bit. The Major should be up here this afternoon. I wonder what he'll have to say. The bomb squad is combing the ruins. They think it was one of those fertilizer bombs, like the IRA uses." "Now, why don't I believe it was the IRA?" muttered Hamish. "There's something odd going on here, Jimmy." "I agree with you. I think one of them did it out of spite. Maybe the Lord told them to do it." "Is there a lot of inbreeding in these parts?" "Not now, no." "It would drive me daft living in a place like Stoyar. Think what it's like in the winter, when the sun rises at 10 in the morning and sinks at 2 in the afternoon. It does that in Strathbane. Aye, but there's life there, man. Lights, traffic, theatre, cinema, clubs, and crime and drugs. Maybe, but we haven't had anything as dramatic as this." "Oh, here's the boss," said Hamish. Blair, red in the face and breathing whisky fumes, came up to them. "You," he said to Jimmy, "come back up to the Major's with me. You, Macbeth, get back to your local duties. We've enough men here." Hamish trotted off. He knew that Jimmy would probably fill him in later, and he also knew that he wasn't going to get anything more out of the locals. As he drove off to Lochdubh, he noticed a cloud, a small round cloud, travelling towards the sun. The breeze through the open window felt damp against his cheek, and the countryside had that waiting feeling it gets when rain is about to arrive. By the time he got back to the police station, the sky was a uniform grey, as if the clouds had sunk down rather than blowing in from the sea. He walked Lugs and fed him and then himself. He checked on his sheep and went back indoors as the first fat raindrops began to fall. He made a pot of tea and sat down at the kitchen table to mull over the situation in Stoyar. Somehow the greyness of the day and the soft rain falling outside seemed to bring back reality to the Highlands, and to his mind. He was now sure that some local had blown up the Major's cottage to get rid of him. The Major, or some of the guests he usually invited in the summer, might have offended someone, and Highland malice, as Hamish knew, ran slow and deep, and took its time over getting revenge. He carried his mug of tea through to the office and stood at the window, looking out at the rain-pocked waters of the loch. Mist was rolling down the hills opposite, to hang in grey wreaths about the top of the forest trees. A small yacht sailed into view. 2 figures were taking down the sails, and he could hear the chug-chug of the donkey engine. He sat down at his desk and switched on the computer, and began to type a report. The next day would be a Sunday. Hamish remembered he had promised to go to church in Stour with Elspeth. Might be interesting to hear one of Fergus Mackenzie's sermons, and discover what it was in them that had prompted such a strong religious revival. Jimmy Anderson arrived in the early evening. "Blasted weather," he said. "Got any whisky?" "No," said Hamish, "and the shop's closed. Closes early on Saturday." "Got anything?" "I've got some brandy left over from Christmas." "That'll do." Hamish took down the brandy bottle from the cupboard. "I won't join you," he said. "I don't like brandy much." "And that's why you've got it left over from Christmas. Good. All the more for me," said Jimmy. "Pour it out." Hamish poured a measure of brandy into a glass and placed it in front of him. "Got cold in here," complained Jimmy. "I'll light the stove," said Hamish. "Any more orders?" "No," said Jimmy, taking a swig of brandy. "Ah, that's better. Blair's been getting on my tits. There's bigwigs up from Scotland Yard and some bods from MI5, and Blair's been showing off by pushing me around and crawling to them." Hamish filled the stove with kindling and paper and struck a match. When the stove was lit, he added several slices of dark peat and a couple of logs. "I think it was a local job," he said. "Well, to be sure, the dafties are all blaming it on God." "Did you manage to get out of them why God should be angry with Major Jennings?" "Mrs. McBain at the general store was more forthcoming than the rest of them." "What did she say?" asked Hamish. "When I asked her why God would see fit to blow up the Major's cottage, she replied that God moved in mysterious ways. And believe me, that meant she was being downright talkative compared to the rest of them up in Brigadoon. So long as everyone's convinced it's a terrorist attack, they'll leave the locals alone." "Did the Major arrive?" "Yes, but he seemed quite unfazed. He said the cottage was insured. He said he'd had some trouble with the locals. He believes it was a piece of spite." "What trouble?" "Usual trouble any incomer has up here. Not getting help. Plumber not turning up, no one prepared to help with the garden or building repairs, that sort of thing." "I'm off to the kirk tomorrow," said Hamish. "Maybe I'll start off by finding out why they've gone all religious." "Maybe you'll see the light yourself," said Jimmy. "Pass that bottle over." Chapter 4. Where we tread, 'tis haunted holy ground. Lord Byron. Hamish's first thought, when he picked up Elspeth the next day, was that at least she had made the effort to dress in a more conventional manner. He had been afraid that she might have decided to turn up for church in something like hot pants. But she was wearing a long black skirt with a black sweater, and had a tartan stole around her shoulders. When she climbed into the Land Rover, however, he noticed that she was still wearing her favourite clumpy boots. "Haven't you got a pair of shoes?" he asked. "Hamish Macbeth, somehow you have graduated to being a grumpy husband without ever having been one. Have you seen the feet of women who have worn high heels all their lives, all bent and twisted? So just drive on and mind your own business." A fine drizzle smeared the windscreen. Hamish switched on the wipers, which made a grating sound. "You need new wipers," commented Elspeth. "I do not," said Hamish, who was sometimes mean about small items like windscreen wipers. "They're just fine when the rain's heavy." As if to prove his point, the rain began to pour down. "The weather forecast's pretty good," said Elspeth. It said it would get better later. Do you have any idea why Major Jennings' cottage got blown up? It's something to do with the villagers, I'm sure of that. There's a sort of religious mania emanating from them. You mean God told them to do it? Something like that, said Elspeth vaguely. Oh, look, I can see a little patch of blue sky ahead. As they approached Stoyar, the rain abruptly ceased. Elspeth was used to the lightning-quick changes of weather in the Highlands, but she still stared in wonder as the clouds rolled back and the sun blazed down on the still black sea. Smoke rose from the cottages below them. Most villagers still had their water heated by a back boiler in the fireplace, so fires were often kept going all year round. Up on the hill, the police tapes fluttered outside the Major's cottage. The waterfront was full of cars and television vans. "You've got competition," remarked Hamish. "They won't get anything out of the villagers," said Elspeth. "If I can't, they can't." "Fancy yourself as an ace reporter?" "No, but I'm Highland and they aren't." Hamish parked amongst the cars. "They won't get a drink here anyway," he said. "The pub closes on the Sabbath." They climbed down from the police Land Rover. There were groups of jaded press standing around. No one bothered to approach them. After their experiences trying to get something out of the villagers and failing, they probably summed up the small population as a waste of time. Elspeth and Hamish caught up with the line of villagers making their way to the church. "Now," said Hamish, "let's see what the preaching is like." The interior of the church was small and whitewashed. There were no religious statues, no crosses. There wasn't even an organ. A chanter, a man who struck a tuning fork on one of the front pews and sang the first note, started off the hymn singing. They sang, "There is a green hill far away without a city wall." "I used to think that meant a city that didn't have a wall," whispered Elspeth. "Then I learnt it meant outside the city wall." "Shh!" said an old lady waspishly. The hymn was followed by 2 readings from the Bible, and then the minister rose to deliver his sermon. Hamish listened in surprise. Whatever had caused this religious fervour in Stoyar, it could hardly be the preachings of Fergus Mackenzie. Hamish and Elspeth were seated at the back of the church, and they had to strain to hear what the minister was saying. His soft voice did not carry well. There was no passion or threat of hell-fire in his sermon. He said the villagers all knew that they were chosen by God and must live up to this privilege. He talked of Moses and the burning bush, and then of the leading of the Israelites to the promised land. His soft voice and the heat of all the bodies in the church, and from the sun now blazing in through the windows, had a soporific effect on Hamish, and his head began to droop. Elspeth nudged him in the ribs. "Pay attention." The service ended with the 23rd Psalm. Elspeth and Hamish waited outside by the church door to see if any of the villagers said anything of interest to the minister, but all they could hear were murmurs of "grand service," or replies to the minister's occasional questions about health or children. Hamish saw Mrs. McBain, who ran the general store, and, taking Elspeth's arm, he fell into step beside her. "Bad business about the Major's cottage," he remarked. "We should not be discussing such things on the Sabbath," said Mrs. McBain primly. "We have our minds on higher things." This reminded Hamish that it was a peculiarity among some Presbyterians to not even hail their best friend on a Sunday. As Mrs. McBain had said, the mind was supposed to be on higher things. They had strict observance of the Lord's Day. There would even be a member of the congregation whose duty it was to police the village on a Sunday, to make sure no one was doing anything sinful like watching television or hanging out their clothes. She hurried on down the hill. "I brought a bit of a picnic," said Hamish to Elspeth. "We may as well have something to eat and drink. Let's sit on the harbour wall. It should be dry by now." He opened the Land Rover and lifted out a basket.
"You're very domesticated," commented Elspeth. Hamish felt a stab of irritation and wondered why even the smallest thing Elspeth said to him sounded like criticism. Hamish had brought fruit and sandwiches and a flask of coffee. "Now," he said, between bites of sandwich, "what have we got?" "Bugger all," said Elspeth, looking dreamily over the sea. "Think," commanded Hamish sharply. "Maybe the boys up the hill have found evidence of an IRA visit, and so we can forget about the whole thing, because whoever did it will probably be back in Ireland by now." "OK, I'll think," said Elspeth. At first they were afraid. Something threatened them. Then they lost that fear. Something reassured them. "Let's go off on a flight of fancy. The minister talked of Moses and the burning bush. He said they were the chosen people, not the Israelites, but the people of Stoyr. They're very superstitious up here. I mean, it's not often you get weather like this right on the coast. Battered by gales all year round, poor soil to scrape a living out of, meagre fishing, what with the decline in stocks and all those bloody European Union regulations." "We should all go and live in Brussels," said Hamish. "I bet they don't give a damn about rules and regulations over there." "Quiet! You told me to think, so I'm thinking. Maybe someone in the village has been having visions. Probably the DTs. Someone sees something. Can't have been the Virgin Mary. They would consider that too popish. Can't be something old and Celtic like a Kelpie. That wouldn't prompt all these visits to the church. Some vision that at first frightened and then reassured, but something that told them not to talk about it." "Let's take it away from the supernatural," said Hamish. "More coffee?" "Please." "Right. Say someone or some people wanted Stoyr kept sealed off. Why?" "Nice little harbour for landing drugs?" "True, but they would see real live men in a real live boat. I'll have another talk to Sean Common, and then I'll try the Bain family again. There's Jimmy." Hamish waved to Jimmy Anderson, who was heading down the harbour towards them. Jimmy came up mopping his red, sweating, foxy face with a large handkerchief. "Didn't know it was going to be this warm," he complained when he came up to them. "Hello, Elspeth. Got anything to drink, Hamish?" "There's a cup of coffee left in the flask." "Coffee? Yuck! There's not a dram to be found in this place." "How's it going?" "Stone-faced locals without a word to say. Blair took over some of the interviewing and I thought he was going to have a stroke. Nobody saw anything. Nobody even got out of bed to see what the noise was." "Any news of any terrorist activity?" "Nothing. You find out anything?" "Only that something has prompted a religious fervour. The Major usually brings up some friends for the fishing. Did he have anyone on the guest list that might excite the attentions of a terrorist?" "No. And he only did some low-key work in Belfast ages ago. He's retired. Actually, he's quite chipper about the whole thing. He planned to sell up, and the insurance will bring him a lot more than he could have got from selling it." "Maybe he did it himself?" Jimmy grinned. "That's what Blair accused him of, and they had to fly Davy it up to soothe the Major down." "This your day off?" "Aye." "I might drop round to see you in Lochdubh on my way back. Got any whisky?" "No," said Hamish. "And you finished the brandy." "Patel's open?" "Not now. He only opens in the morning for the Sunday papers." "Damn. I'll be off then." "How long will the police be around?" asked Elspeth. "A good few days yet, and if there's any funny business going on in Stoyr, believe me, nothing's going to happen until they give up and leave. Say it's a local job, the Major's cottage, I mean. It could just be spite, but I don't think so. The man only came up in the summers. Now, the Major was once in Army intelligence. Perhaps someone didn't want any sharp-eyed outsider around, someone who might notice things the locals wouldn't." "Any word of Bella Common?" "Nothing yet. I'd like that one caught before she messes up someone else's life."
Once back at the police station, after having dropped Elspeth off, Hamish fed his hens, some of whom were quite elderly, as he never had the heart to kill any of them for the pot, walked lugs, and settled down to watch television. He felt he'd done enough on his day off. Sean and the Baines could wait until the morning. He had just untied and kicked off his heavy regulation boots, which he wore even when not wearing his uniform, when he heard the phone ringing in the office. He was just wondering whether to answer it or not, when the answering machine clicked on and he heard the loud voice of Mrs. Wellington. "Clary phoned from the hotel. He's been trying to get you. One of the maids says she saw Bella Common in Bonar Bridge today." Hamish rang the minister's wife and asked her, "Where was she seen?" "In that grocery shop just by the bridge." Hamish thanked her, retied his boots, and with a sigh set off on the long road to Bonar Bridge, with Lugs beside him in the passenger seat. "Now, Lugs," said Hamish, "I wonder just what is going on in Stoer." The dog turned his odd blue eyes reluctantly from the passing countryside and gave a slight sniff. "Exactly," agreed Hamish. "I don't know either, and I don't like it. I've got some holiday owing. I've a good mind to go and stay there for a few days and see what I can find out. I could stay at that place Sean rented. Would you like Stoer?" Lugs sighed again. "Me neither," said Hamish, "but something weird's going on there." Master and dog then drove in companionable silence to Bonar Bridge. The sun had gone down behind a bank of clouds when Hamish finally drove into Bonar Bridge. The place looked deserted. He parked outside the grocery shop and went in. There were no customers. A woman behind the counter asked, "Can I help you? It's Mr. Macbeth, isn't it?" "Aye," said Hamish, stepping forward and removing his peaked cap. "Have we met?" "Up at the Highland Games at Breaky 2 years ago. My boy got stuck up in a tree and you got him down." "I remember, it's Mrs. Turner, isn't it?" "That's right. What can I do for you?" "I'm looking for a Bella Common. Small, blonde, pretty. I heard she was in here today." "Oh, her? What's she wanted for?" "Oh, just part of a general inquiry. Do you know where she lives?" "Up in one of the Swedish houses on the council estate, number 24 Sutherland Lane." "She living on her own?" "No, she's Jamie Stewart's girlfriend. They're going to get married." "Are they really? Who is this Jamie Stewart?" "He's a motor mechanic. He works at a garage in Alness." "Thanks. I'll go and see them." Swedish houses are wooden 2-storey houses built by the government right after World War II. Hamish cruised around the estate until he found Sutherland Lane. Number 24 seemed to be in good repair. The garden was neat and tidy. The window frames had recently been painted, as had the front door. He rang the bell. A thin young man opened the door. "What's up?" he asked anxiously. "I'm here to see Bella." The young man stood back. "Come in. I hope it's not bad news." He led the way into a living room. Bella was sitting embroidering a tablecloth, the picture of pretty domesticity. When she saw Hamish, a look of pure hatred flashed in her eyes, but then she smiled and said, "Why, Hamish, how nice to see you. Tea?" Hamish sat down and surveyed her. "We've been looking for you, Bella." "What's all this about?" demanded Jamie. "It's about that dog I killed," said Bella. "I told you about that. I hit it on the head to defend myself, and now the RSPCA's looking for me." Hamish swung round and said to Jamie, "I hear you're getting married. Do you know she is already married?" "We're getting married as soon as her divorce comes through," said Jamie. Hamish looked at Bella. "Have you applied for a divorce?" "She hasn't had the courage to face that beast yet, the way he treated her," exclaimed Jamie. Hamish stood up. "You'll be hearing from the RSPCA, Bella. Jamie, a word with you outside." Jamie walked outside into the garden and then turned and faced Hamish. "Why the hell are you persecuting the poor girl?" "I'm here to warn you, laddie," said Hamish. "Listen to me and listen to me carefully. Bella is a husband-beater." If you don't believe me, you should go talk to her husband over in Lochdubh. She's a dangerous woman and has a police record for assault." Jamie looked at him arrogantly. "She told me everything about how that Sean twisted everything to make it look as if she was the guilty one. I love her, and nothing you can say will make me change my mind." "She is one of the best liars I've ever come across," said Hamish. "Have you any money?" "What?" "Are you comfortably off?" Jamie looked at him, puzzled. "I'm a canny man, and I've a bit put by. My mother died last year and left me a good bit." "Then hang on to it, or that one will clean you out. And do me a favour, don't make a will." "I've a good mind to report you for slander." "Go ahead," said Hamish wearily. He fished in his tunic pocket. "Here's my card. If you need any help, call me." Jamie ripped up the card and threw the pieces on the ground, then turned on his heel and marched back into the house. Hamish climbed back into the Land Rover and looked at lugs. "I've done my best," he said. "What else can I do?" Back at the station, he sent a report to the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. He felt he was wasting his time. Once they had heard Bella's fictitious story about the savage dog, they would decide they had not enough to take her to court. Sean could protest for all his worth that the animal had been gentle. He hadn't been there when the dog was killed. Bella could argue that the dog had turned vicious because of the absence of its master, and the police had dropped the case. The kitchen door opened, and he heard Jimmy Anderson's voice shouting, "Anyone home?" Hamish went out to join him. Jimmy was holding a full bottle of whisky. "Where did you get that, on the Sabbath?" asked Hamish. "The Tommel Castle Hotel. I told the manager to put it on your bill." "I don't have a bill at the hotel." "Well, you do now. Pour us a dram." "After all the whisky of mine you've drunk, you might at least pay for some." Jimmy gave his foxy grin. "If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have any inside information about anything." Hamish lifted down 2 glasses from the kitchen cupboard and set them on the table. Both men sat down. Jimmy poured a large measure for himself and a small one for Hamish. "How can cops go around arresting people for driving over the limit," complained Hamish, "when a detective stinks of booze?" "Stop grumbling, drink up and listen. It wasn't a sophisticated bomb. It was a fertilizer bomb." "But the IRA use those." "Aye, but it does point to the locals. The blast was caused just as much by the Major's Calor gas tanks exploding as from the bomb. You know the Major, don't you?" "Only ever had a few words with him. Pleasant enough man," Hamish commented. "All the cops and me can get out of the locals is that it was caused by the wrath of God. They say the Major and his summer guests were in the way of having wild parties, full of loose harlots and drugs." My, loose harlots. Is that exactly what they said?" "Of course. You don't think I would put it that way." In vain did we point out that the Major's friends, all upstanding middle-aged and elderly citizens, were nothing like that. They all just looked stubborn and refused to say anything else. I can't understand this religious mania. I went to one of Mackenzie's sermons, and there's nothing violent or rabble-rousing in them." "Maybe he toned it down because you were in the congregation." "I don't think so. I've got leave owing me. I might go up and live there for a week. If I was actually amongst them, one of them might crack and tell me something." "You going to clear it with Blair?" "Not on your life." "So what other news?" "Nothing more, except it's got the Major out of Sutherland. He'll collect the insurance, and he says he'll get somewhere down in Perthshire where folks are civilised. He thinks it's this anti-English mania." "Could be. By the way, I found the horrible Bella Common. She's living over in Bonar Bridge with a new victim. She's going to divorce Sean and marry this one." Hamish told Jimmy more about his visit. "We'll soon be searching the peat bogs for that one," said Jimmy. "I'll be off." He stood up, screwed the top back on the whisky bottle, and made to put it in his pocket. "Don't you dare," said Hamish wrathfully. I paid for that hooch, so here it stays. And buy your own usquebert next time. The following day, Hamish decided to try the Bain family once more. This time he saw what must surely be Harry Bain digging at a flower bed in the garden. "Mr. Bain."
"Aye, what's up?"
He was a small man with rounded shoulders and long arms. His thick hair was black and curly, and sat on top of his head like a wig. His eyes were light grey and narrow in his weather-beaten face. "You've heard about the Major's cottage being blown up?"
"Aye, that was a bad business."
"What's going on in Stour? What's all this religious business?" He turned away and picked up the spade which he had thrust into the earth when he had seen Hamish.
"I don't know nothing about that," said Harry. "We aye keep ourselves to ourselves."
"So why did you move here?"
"Stour's a bit remote."
"Lochdubh is hardly the bright lights of the city."
"The school's better here. The lassie wasn't learning quick enough."
"You must have noticed something," said Hamish impatiently. "You're hiding something."
"There's nothing to hide," he snapped. "Haven't you any criminals to catch?"
"Yes, I have. For a start, there are the criminals who blew up the Major's cottage."
"I can't help you there. Now, can I get on with my work?"
Defeated, Hamish walked off. He returned to the police station and collected his dog and drove off to Strathbane. He called at police headquarters to arrange for a week's leave and met Superintendent Daviot on the stairs. "What brings you here?" asked Daviot.
"I'm owed a few days off, sir," said Hamish.
"At such a time? Still, I suppose with everyone from the anti-terrorist squad to Blair going over what happened at Stour, you won't be needed. Get Sergeant McGregor at Nauthen to cover your beat."
"Yes, sir."
"When will you be leaving?"
Hamish thought quickly.
He should give things a couple of weeks to settle down. If he went to Stour right away, Blair would still be there, and Blair would interfere with any investigation.
"In 2 weeks' time, sir."
"Where are you going?" "I might visit my cousin in Dornoch," said Hamish, his hazel eyes taking on that limpid look they always got when he was lying.
"Have a nice time. How is Miss Halberton Smythe?"
But Hamish did not want to discuss the once love of his life, who was now set to marry someone else.
"Fine."
He touched his cap and moved up the stairs. His business at police headquarters having been settled, Hamish went to the estate agent and rented the same cottage that Sean had stayed in. They gave him the keys, saying that no one else would want to rent anywhere in Stour at the moment. On his return to Lochdubh, Hamish called on Sean Comyn to tell the crofter about his meeting with Bella. "I hope she does ask me for a divorce," said Sean, "but I'm not paying her a penny."
"I don't think you'll have to," said Hamish. "She wouldn't want her criminal record exposed in court."
"Why, the deer fences." He pointed to where a new section of deer fence stood at the beginning of a field. "There's no money in the sheep at all," mourned Sean. "I'm going to try the deer." "Good luck to you." Hamish turned away.
"If you hear anything more about Bella, let me know," called Sean.
"Will do." When Hamish arrived at the police station, it was to find Elspeth waiting for him. "Is this a friendly visit?" he asked, "or are you after news?"
"I have just heard from Mrs. Wellington that Bella had been sighted over at Bonar Bridge."
"Come in and have a cup of tea and I'll tell you about it." Elspeth listened carefully while Hamish made a pot of tea. When they were sitting at the kitchen table, she said,
"I somehow can't see Bella just asking for a divorce without getting something out of it."
"She can't really do anything. Like I was saying to Sean, she probably knows that her previous criminal record would come out in court."
"So he'll be all right?"
Elspeth took a sip of tea.
"That is, unless he's made a will in her favour."
"What?"
"If he's made a will in her favour, then he should change it pronto and let her know."
"You don't think she'd do anything to him?"
"Why not? She hammered that dog to death. She's got a new lover who'll probably swear blind she was with him the whole time if she did anything to Sean."
"Maybe I'd better tell him to alter his will," said Hamish slowly.
Do it now.
Hamish went through to the office and dialled Sean's number. There was no reply. He returned to the kitchen.
Not there. He's changing over to deer and building fences. He's probably out in the fields.
Well, run over there and see him.
Elspeth, you're panicking. Bella's got a new patsy and he seems to have money. She'll be happy with that.
Her gypsy eyes surveyed him. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Look, Elspeth, just because you write that astrology column doesn't mean that you have the second sight, said Hamish, his Highland accent becoming more sibilant in his irritation.
In that case, you lazy copper, I'll have a word with him myself.
Do what you like.
Interfering busybody, thought Hamish sourly after she had left, and then almost immediately he felt guilty. Elspeth had only been trying to help. He worked around his croft that afternoon, enjoying being out in the sunshine and clear air. When he was in the upper field, he heard the telephone ring inside the police station. He reluctantly headed back indoors to check the answering machine. Sean's voice sounded out.
Bella's coming to see me. She's not going to ask for anything, just a straightforward divorce on breakdown of marriage. She's bringing the papers over.
Hamish remembered Elspeth's words. He got into the Land Rover and set off along the waterfront. He saw Elspeth leaving the newspaper office and jerked to a halt.
"Jump in," he called. "Sean's phoned. Bella's on her way to see him."
Elspeth hopped in. "So you do think there's some danger after all?"
"Better to make sure there isn't."
"Then don't drive right up to the door. Park a little way away. If she's up to anything, we want to catch her in the act. If we're not too late, that is." Hamish parked down at the bottom of the dirt road which led up to the Croft house. There was a new Ford Metro parked outside.
"Looks like she's here," he said. "She must have learned to drive. Let's hurry."
"Look in the kitchen window first," urged Elspeth.
"If they're just sitting there talking, we'll knock on the door."
There was no garden, only springy heather below the cottage windows to muffle the sounds of their approach. Hamish crouched down and peered inside the kitchen window. Sean was lolling in a chair by the fireplace, his eyes closed. An open bottle of whisky was on the table with 2 glasses. Bella was standing with a shotgun, loading it. She was wearing thin plastic gloves. Then she knelt down and began to try to press one of Sean's inert hands round the trigger. Hamish darted to the door and flung it open. Mad with fright and rage, Bella turned round, and Hamish and Elspeth threw themselves to the ground as the blast from the shotgun deafened them. Hamish leapt to his feet before she could fire again. He wrested the shotgun from her and got her down on the floor and handcuffed her while she screamed abuse. Hamish checked Sean's pulse. He was still alive. He guessed that Bella had drugged him and was about to fake a suicide. By the time reinforcements had arrived from Lochdubh, Bella was crying and saying that Sean had been trying to commit suicide and she had been trying to stop him.
"Well, that's that," said Hamish wearily, when Bella had been taken away and Sean borne off in an ambulance. "At least we've got her now. She'll be away for a long time."
"That'll teach you to listen to me in future," said Elspeth. "Now, I'm off to write up the story for the Nationals."
"Sub judice. You can't say anything until after she's charged."
"Oh, yes, I can. I just don't mention her name. I just describe everything and say a woman is helping police with their inquiries. What about buying me dinner one night?"
"I'll take you for dinner tomorrow night. The Italians."
Back at the police station, Hamish sat down and typed out a lengthy report. Poor Jamie Stewart. The police would have already borne him off to Strathbane in case he turned out to have been Bella's accomplice. Chapter 5. Inspiring bold John Barleycorn, what dangers thou canst make us scorn. Wi' tippenny we fear nae evil, wi' usquepe we'll face the devil. Robert Burns. The next few days passed quietly for Hamish. Sergeant McGregor over in Nothin had sourly agreed to cover for him while he was away on holiday. The bombing of the Major's cottage had disappeared from even the local newspapers. Elspeth had cancelled their date for dinner, saying she was on a story. Hamish had been mildly surprised at his own disappointment. The weather was not perfect. There had been 2 days of rain, but by the end of the week the sun shone again. Purple heather blazed on the flanks of the 2 mountains above Lochdubh. Not a ripple disturbed the glassy waters of the sea loch. It was hard to even think of violence as Hamish lounged in his deck chair in the front garden, under the blue lamp, with lugs lying on his back at his feet, his paws in the air. His peace was disturbed by Jimmy Anderson, who had come looking for the remains of that bottle of whisky. Hamish collected another deck chair, the bottle and glasses, and Jimmy sat down with a sigh of pleasure. "How are things at Stoyer?" asked Hamish. Jimmy held up his glass, admiring the colour of the whisky in the sunlight, before taking a hearty swig of it. "Nothing," said Jimmy laconically. "Same old business. Tight-lipped locals. The powers that be are pretty sure it was one of them." "I wonder why. I mean, a fertilizer bomb probably takes a bit of knowledge of chemistry." "The fact is, they don't think all that much was used. Bit of newspaper, bit of fertilizer, fuel and cotton, light it, chuck it inside and run like hell. Leave the Major's Calor gas tanks to do the rest." "Still, it takes some knowledge." "Anyone could get the instructions how to make it off the internet." "I wouldn't think anyone in Stoyer had a computer." "Anyone could go to the cyber cafe in Strathbane." Hamish eyed the detective shrewdly. "But they checked with the cafe and couldn't find anyone who had been accessing the information." "Something like that." "I'm thinking of taking a bit of a holiday and going and staying there," said Hamish. "Waste of time off, if you ask me. Does Blair know about this?" "No, and don't breathe a word." "I won't." "So nothing's happening in Stoyer?" "All quiet. They had a Burns reading a tam o' shanter at the kirk there last night. Exciting stuff. Read by some woman with a reedy voice." "What's tippenny?" "Oh, the stuff that makes you fear no evil." 2-penny ale." "And Ushkabear?" "Whisky, the water of life. Don't tell me you didn't know." Never could get my tongue around the Gaelic. That bomb was probably some nasty bit of anti-Englishness. Blair suggested as much to the Major, and then had to backpedal as the good Major was threatening to take the whole village to the Race Relations Board. "You know, there probably was never a people like the Scots to know so little about their own history. Do you know where the Scots came from, Jimmy?" "I thought they were always here." "They came from Northern Ireland and proceeded to wipe out the Celts and the Picts in one of the biggest acts of genocide in history. The trouble's always caused by the Lowlanders, not us. They live in a Gaelic twilight with tartan fringes. Anyway, to get back to Stoyer, what's the mood like? Are the folks scared?" "No, there's an odd atmosphere there, a sort of suppressed excitement, like kids before Christmas." "That's very interesting. I can't wait to get there now, but I'll keep clear until the authorities have gone." "Shouldn't be long now. If it had been a big professional bomb, they'd have been there for a long time, but everything now points to the locals." The garden gate creaked and Elspeth walked in. She was wearing a near-transparent Indian blouse, covered in what looked like little bits of mirror. Her shorts were very short, showing strong tanned legs, ending in her usual clumpy boots. "What about having that dinner this evening?" she asked Hamish. "All right. I'll see you at the Italians at 8. Elspeth smiled at Jimmy. "See you there, Hamish," she said. "Man," breathed Jimmy when she had left. "You are one lucky man. What a smasher." "Elspeth? She's just a local reporter." "I know, I've met her before, remember? I didn't know she was keen on you."
"We are just friends," said Hamish stiffly.
"Wish I had a friend like that," leered Jimmy. "She does wear weird clothes." "Move with the times. You're getting old-fashioned, Hamish." Hamish found Elspeth waiting for him when he arrived at the restaurant that evening. She was wearing a brightly coloured jacket made of diamond-cut pieces of coloured velvet over a faded black T-shirt and a long black chiffon skirt, and the boots. He had a sudden picture of Priscilla sitting there, impeccably dressed and without a hair out of place, and felt a dark sadness. Elspeth's hair was no longer aubergine, but it stood out all over her head as if she had stuck her finger in an electric socket. He noticed, as he sat down, that her fingernails were painted black. Hamish had made a promise to himself never to refer to any part of Elspeth's appearance again. After all, how she looked or what she wore was none of his business. But he found himself saying sharply, "What have you done with your nails? They make your hands look as if you shut them in a car door." "Sit down, shut up, and choose something to eat," said Elspeth amiably. "I'm starving." Willie Lamont, the waiter, who had been a policeman until he married a relative of the restaurant owner, came up to take their order. "What'll it be, Hamish?" he asked. "Why don't you ask the lady first what she wants?" chided Hamish. "Right. Michty me, lassie, your nails are black." "And michty me, the service in here is rotten. Do you usually make personal remarks to your customers?" "Sorry," mumbled Willie. "What's it to be?" "Caesar salad first, and then lasagna." "I'll have a mixed salad, and then the penne with the basil sauce. And bring us a bottle of the house wine," said Hamish. Willie wrote down their order and then lingered, moving from foot to foot. "What?" demanded Hamish. "Funny business at Stoyer," said Willie. "Know anything about it?" "No, but I'm keeping my ear to the ground." "Grand. Now, how's about getting us the food?" "Lucia wonders when you're coming to see wee Hamish, your godchild." "Tell her I'll be along soon." "He's taking his first steps, and you haven't been there to see it." "Willie, food!" Elspeth watched Willie retreat to the kitchen with their orders. "What does Lucia see in him?" she asked. "He cleans. He's mad about cleaning. He does all the housework. That's why Lucia adores him." "So what's been happening about Stoyer?" asked Elspeth. "I've just been over there." "You'll know more about it than I do. Find out anything?" "No, but something bad's going on." "How?" "I sense it." "I'm going to do something more practical about finding out," said Hamish. He told her about his planned holiday there. "I've some leave owing," said Elspeth. "I could come with you." "And where would you stay?" "Wherever you're staying, of course." "That would antagonise that God-fearing community no end. They would say we were living in sin." "Well, I'll drop over and see you." Hamish began to feel hunted. "Just leave me be to get on with my investigation," he said quietly. Elspeth turned a little pink and looked relieved when Willie arrived with the wine. "So what's been going on in Lochdubh that I don't know about?" asked Hamish, to break the awkward silence which had followed his last remark. "Maybe there's something you could do to help," said Elspeth. "Do you know old Mrs. Docherty?" "Of course. I haven't seen her for a while." "She's all alone. She needs professional care. She's rambling in her mind and should really be in a nursing home." "Has she any relatives?" "Just a daughter down in Glasgow. Mrs. Wellington has written to her several times, but she never replies." "What nursing home could she go into?" "There's a new one just outside Brakey." "I'd forgotten about that one. It's called The Pines." Maybe you could call on her and persuade her to go there. Mind you, it would mean selling her cottage." They talked together amicably, and Hamish had to admit to himself afterwards that he had enjoyed the evening. Hamish called on Mrs. Docherty the following day. The front door was standing open, so he put his head round it and called, "Mrs. Docherty, it's me, Hamish."
"Come in,"
called a surprisingly strong voice. He walked into a small cluttered parlour. Mrs. Docherty looked as hale and hearty as the last time he'd seen her. Her grey hair was thick, and her large figure was not stooped. Her face was criss-crossed with a multitude of wrinkles, and her faded grey eyes were alert.
"Sit down, Hamish," she said. "You can make us a cup of tea after you explain why you've called."
"It's a social visit," said Hamish awkwardly. Her intelligent eyes surveyed him with amusement. "Oh, I heard you were getting senile," Hamish blurted out, and then turned dark red with embarrassment. She laughed.
"Don't look so upset. Most people weary me. I have my books and my computer to keep me amused, so when people I don't like call round, I mumble and drool. Maybe I'd better stop it, or they'll be dragging me off to some nursing home. I hear there's a new one outside Brakey." "Not all that new. It's been there for a year. I wouldn't go there, even if I was on my last legs."
"Why?"
"I think they kill people," she said.
"Oh, come on, I'd have heard about it."
"I had a good friend over in Brakey," she said, "Maisie Freeman. She got very frail and her family persuaded her to go into the Pines. It's a private nursing home, but if you sign over your house to them, they promise the best care and medical attention until the day you die. She only had her married daughter to look after her, Aileen, and Aileen is a selfish cow. Her husband's pretty well off, so the loss of Maisie's house when she did die wasn't going to bother them. They just wanted rid of Maisie. She was, like I said, a bit frail, but she had all her faculties. I visited her. I didn't like the staff very much. Very creepy and smarmy. Anyway, Maisie lasted only 4 weeks.
What happened to her?
She fell down a flight of steps and broke her neck. Now, the rooms are all on the ground floor and the office is upstairs. She had no reason to go upstairs.
Maybe she wanted to complain to the manager.
Then she would have sent for him. She had the rheumatoid arthritis. She'd no more have tackled those stairs than she would have thought of climbing Everest.
What did the nursing home say?
They said Maisie's mind had gone, and she must have wandered upstairs, not knowing where she was, and lost her footing. I visited her 2 days before her death, and she was as bright as a button. But you know how it is. People think the very old are a waste of space anyway. You know what I think will happen in the future? I think they'll find a way to extend life for a very long time and keep people young-looking. The criminal element amongst the young will hate all these oldies hanging on to jobs and taking up space on the planet. Someone will start issuing dates of birth on the internet, and they'll start bumping all the oldies off.
"I tell you what," said Hamish, "I'll go over there and have a talk with them."
"I don't see how you can find anything out. I've a good bit of money put by. People don't know that. I'm tempted to check myself in there and see what happens."
"If what you think is true, it could be dangerous."
"Not if I pretend to be senile. I mean, not all the time, because I'd need to look as if I had my wits about me some days to check in."
"It would mean signing your cottage over to them."
"It would be a risk, and a bit of excitement for me."
"Hold on," said Hamish. "I mean, houses in the Highlands don't command that much money on the market. If patients started dropping like flies soon after they were admitted, there'd be an inquiry."
"I think they'd be clever about it. I mean, it's only old people on their last legs who go into nursing homes."
"I'll go over there anyway and look around. I'll say it's a private visit. I've got an elderly relative who might be interested."
"You could get that reporter lassie to check the obituaries of people in Brakey who died within the last year," she said.
"Let me have a look around first."
"Very well. Go and make the tea."
Hamish called in at the newspaper office after he had left Mrs. Docherty's. Elspeth had a pencil stuck through her hair and was scowling at her computer.
"I'm wasted here," she said when she saw Hamish. "How can I put a bit of drama into the latest Mothers' Union meeting?"
"Why don't you apply for a job on one of the Glasgow papers?"
"I'll think about it. Why are you here?"
"I want a favour. Could you check up your obituary files and give me the names of old people who died in the Pines during the last year?"
"Why? Can't you just do it, lassie?" "I'm a reporter.